We are live.
Very good. Good afternoon. This is Crystal from Ohio State University, and today we are going to be listening to a colleague and friend that I've known for several years. He's one of my international friends from Canada, and he's got a great story to tell us about educational technology. Just briefly, how I know Rob. I've known Rob through an organization that we both serve on the executive committee, I Am Learn, and from that introduction, I was his one of his advisors on his dissertation from a university that he'll describe in a couple of minutes, where he got his doctorate. And we have actually published a few pieces together over the years. And he is one of the world experts, excuse me, on mobile learning. And that's why I thought today we would listen to Rob discuss some of his thoughts about technology, what he's doing right now, and especially about mobile learning, how that is impacting our students today and into the future. So I'd like to begin by asking Rob an obvious question. Can you please tell us your background leading up to what you're doing today?
Hi, Dean. Thanks. And yes, thank you for inviting me for this discussion. We've got a history going back a few years now to MLearn 2013, where I met Dean in Doha, Qatar. My history, I've been involved in the teaching and learning game now since 2001 when I went and did my Bachelor of Education. Before that, I was working in broadcast journalism in Newfoundland, Labrador, and Canada for a few years. And I kind of got involved in the teaching game in 2001, did my bachelor's, did my master's degree in educational technology in 2002, 2003. And spent a few years teaching technology education in Newfoundland before moving over to College of the North Atlantic, Qatar in Doha, where I taught information technology for 8.5 years. After which time I moved over to the college's Advanced Learning Technology Center, where I took up a post as an instructional developer. And I was there for a couple of years doing instructional development work. And I'm now working for the Fraser Health Authority in Surrey, British Columbia, where I am the leader of online learning. I'm working with a team here that develops online training materials for about 23,000 users, including healthcare professionals, as well as members of the general public, medical students, nursing students, pretty much any students from the immediate area who are affiliated with some of the health authorities and are taking online training modules. Some more of my background, I did meet Dean through the International Association for Mobile Learning, I Am Learn. I became involved with I Am Learn in my first year of my doctoral studies back in 2011. I did my doctorate of education in online education through Athabasca University, which is Canada's equivalent of the Open University of the UK. And I specialized in mobile learning. And after becoming involved as a student member of I Am Learn, I traveled to my first MLearn conference in Helsinki, Finland in 2012, where I presented on a research study I was doing on mobile learning in Qatar. A year later, I ended up chairing the MLearn conference, which was hosted in Doha, and presenting there again, and that's where I met Dean, and we became interested in collaborating on some of our research activities and professional development activities. Dean became involved as a member of my supervisory committee for my dissertation work. And I finished my doctoral dissertation just over a year ago in January 2015. And I've been continuing to work with I Am Learn and continuing to do some mobile learning research since then. In addition to my work at Fraser Health now, I'm also working as an adjunct professor of educational technology with the University of Ontario Institute of Technology.
Well, thanks, Rob. We appreciate that nice background. What really got you involved in educational technology? You said you were outside of education, but got interested in education, specifically ed technology. What is it about that intrigued you?
Well, educational technology wasn't how I originally got involved in the education game. My Bachelor of Arts degree, my first university degree, was a major in English and a minor in history. So I ended up getting into the teaching game as an English language arts and social studies teacher back in 2001. And one of the very first things that happened on my first week on the job in our rural community in Newfoundland was that we had a school bus driver strike. Actually, it was a general support staff strike, so a lot of students couldn't get in. And the first thing I did was mimic what some of my fellow teachers at the school were doing and set up a website whereby I could share some of the learning materials, just the course outlines and some worksheets and reading lists and things like that with my students. And this was back in early 2001. And I just became really interested in using that medium to share with my students and to help them have a repository of information besides just handing out papers in class every day. And after my first year there, it was only a temporary position. I went back and enrolled in the Masters of Education in Information Technology program at Memorial University of Newfoundland. And that's where I really fell in love with the idea of leveraging educational technology to make the learning experience more positive for students. And after that, when I started teaching technology education at another rural school in Newfoundland, I became really heavily involved in maintaining the school's IT infrastructure and with using web pages as a means of actually storing and communicating the learning materials and resources for the students, and getting my students to actually publish some of their learning products online. And I kind of continued that when I went overseas to College of the North Atlantic, Qatar. And I started relying heavily on using wikis and things like that because we didn't have a learning management system in place at the time. But when we started using a learning management system at the college, we started investigating the use of Desire to Learn. And this was before I even started my doctoral studies. And I was kind of one of the pioneers at the college. I actually had the first course on our learning management system to be used live. And it was a professional development course I was doing with some teachers overseas. And I actually went live with that course about 4 years before the college formally adopted the learning management system and formally adopted taking a blended learning approach. So that's kind of how I became involved with educational technology. I just kind of gradually built up my skills over the years, became more and more interested, and went down the mobile learning branch when I started my doctoral studies.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I just want our students to get some overview of what your background is, and then we'll specifically focus on mobile learning. Do you have any experiences working with in-service and pre-service teachers directly?
I do. When I was working at the college, I was the coordinator for a program called the ICDL Training and Testing Center at the college, the International Computer Driver's License Center. And I, over the course of 6 years, was able to coordinate and help deliver some professional development training for our college instructors, for over 200 faculty and staff at the college on basic IT skills. And I tried to deliver that in a way that it actually connected with their professional practice in their classroom so that they could make use out of those tools. I've also had some experience in Qatar working with one of their ministries, the Supreme Council of Education for Information and Communications Technology. I helped them to develop an interactive whiteboard pedagogy course, which I delivered, and that was that first blended mode course I mentioned, the first course that went live on our D2L server. I also worked with some teachers from one of the local K-12 schools, helping them to do their ICDL certification. And I helped to develop a train the trainer program for a group of contracted trainers who were going to be delivering some basic IT skills literacy skills courses for disadvantaged rural women in the state of Qatar. So I developed a course whereby I helped them to develop their pedagogical skills and their lesson planning skills, and to get some practice with actual delivery of training sessions before they went out into the field. Other than that, I've got my my work that I'm doing now with University of Ontario Institute of Technology. I'm teaching 2 master's level educational technology courses there. And my work here at Fraser Health, I'm working with our clinical educators to help them to develop online materials and to help them get a good pedagogical design for the materials that they're developing.
Okay, let's move on to mobile learning. Many of my students think about mobile learning probably in very generic kinds of ways. We're just starting to explore that area. So why do you see mobile learning as an important area of educational technology?
I think that it's an important area because it goes beyond the mobile devices themselves. For one, this is the first means of accessing the internet that has gone truly global. We've tried one-to-one programs with 1 laptop per student and things like that, both throughout North America and in the developing world. And it hasn't caught on nearly the same way that everyone getting access to the internet via mobile technologies has. We surpassed, about 1.5 years ago, we finally actually surpassed the point where more people are accessing the internet via mobile technologies than through traditional computers, such as personal computers or laptop computers. So it's the means through which more people are getting online, and it's the means through which we're going to have access to deliver both formal and informal training and educational opportunities to people than any other means that's available to us right now. So that's why it's important. I think it's also important because the range of opportunities for formal and informal educational collaboration via mobile devices, I think they far exceed what we could achieve with traditional computers, even when we're talking about formal K-12 systems in North America or in Europe.
Okay. You briefly talked a little bit about your research interest, and can you just give our students a little bit of understanding what kinds of things that you're interested in from a researcher perspective with mobile learning?
Sure. What I've been really interested in over the past few years is a problem that was articulated by Professor Muhammad Ali at MLearn 2013 in Doha. And that's the fact that a lot of mobile learning initiatives, tablet deployment initiatives, integration of mobile technologies in the classroom, what's holding a lot of that back seems to be teachers themselves and their level of confidence with using the mobile technologies. That's not to say that they don't have the skills to use those technologies, but they don't feel comfortable using them for one reason or another. And part of that just stems from their lack of confidence that they'd be able to control the classroom and maintain classroom management while they're using those technologies. Part of it stems from their lack of confidence in their ability to integrate the technologies into their instructional designs. And part of it stems from their lack of confidence in the stability and the reliability of the devices and the technology itself. So that's what I've kind of been interested in researching over the past few years. That's what I focused my dissertation research on, was methodologies to help teachers become more confident in their abilities to integrate mobile technologies, and in measuring impacts of different types of training on teachers' perceptions of confidence or their level of self-efficacy with using mobile technologies.
And when you do introduce your methodologies in helping these teachers, what are you finding?
Well, what I focused on in my dissertation research was a framework called CSAM, the Collaborative Situated Active Mobile Learning Framework. And it's a framework that I initially developed to help scaffold myself with designing mobile reusable learning objects. And I gleaned that from looking at case studies of the use of reusable learning objects in mobile learning over the past number of years. And I developed a graphical framework from that teachers could use. And I also developed a micro massive open online course. And what I found when teachers participated in that MOOC, and I provided them with some opportunities to scaffold their understanding of instructional design around the CSAM framework, while using some easy-to-use free online tools, was that it actually did increase their level of confidence in using mobile technologies, and it increased their interest in using mobile technologies. So they got more interested in it, they became more comfortable with using it, and they walked away with a set of tools that they could use to help them design lessons that incorporated mobile technologies.
Do you think, I know you haven't followed them in an extensive way. Do you think that once they left you and they started talking about feeling more comfortable, do you think, what's your notions about where do you think they are today?
Well, it would be interesting to see exactly where they are today with their scores on their efficacy scales. The group that participated in my initial study during my doctoral dissertation, I did follow up with them about 4 months after the completion of the training, so close to the end of my doctoral studies. And I did see that their levels of self-efficacy and their interest levels were sustained even 4 months after doing the professional development training. And that was also after their summer holidays. So they had walked away, they had gone on their summer vacation, they had come back, they were in the middle of the busy part of the year of getting set up for the year, and all the hectic and stress related to that, but they were still interested, and they did still feel more confident in their ability to integrate mobile technologies than they had at the beginning of the professional development training. So it would be interesting to go back and revisit that and see where they are now, see if they've had some more uptake and tried some more mobile learning strategies. But I think that that interest level would and that comfort level would still be maintained at this point, because what we tried to focus on was not the specifics of the technology itself, but what they're already good at teachers, and that's designing instruction. And just to give them some ideas of how they could start experimenting without getting overwhelmed with the technological factors by focusing on the learning outcomes and the big picture of what it is that they're trying to achieve, and then how to take small steps with that, with gradually introducing newer technologies that they weren't previously familiar with.
Because I just want to clarify for the audience that most of the teachers were not educational technology teachers. These were teachers teaching in other content areas.
Yes, that's right. We had a range of teachers involved in this, and the majority of them were not educational technology specialists. We had math teachers and chemistry teachers and language arts teachers and social studies teachers. We had a huge range of teachers who had enrolled in this study and in the professional development program just out of their own curiosity and their own interest in seeing what mobile technologies could possibly offer them.
Okay. So the reason I'm bringing that up, Rob, is that my students are pre-service teachers, and one of my goals from the course that they're taking with me is this introduction to technology in the classroom, that they will feel more comfortable exploring on themselves rather than having other people telling them this is what you need to do from a technology perspective. So it's nice to hear from your own research that if you're given good professional development or you're giving good instruction at the university level, that once you feel internally comfortable, then you can then start exploring yourself without anyone else around helping you through that process.
Exactly, and that's how I got involved in the game to begin with. I've never taken any formal training in computer programming or web design or anything like that. I'm self-taught on all of those things. I did do a master's degree of education in information technology, but the focus of that degree was not on the technological aspects themselves, but on the pedagogical aspects of what the appropriate uses of technology are and how to design instruction that capitalizes on technology. So it's kind of the same way, the approach that I took in my professional development MOOC around the CSAM framework kind of took the same approach that I did through my master's degree. I looked at what I was already good at, built upon my pedagogical skills, and then just went out and found tools that interested me and started capitalizing on them over a number of years. So yeah, I don't think that most teachers will have the time during their pre-service training to specialize in educational technology or to have a very strong strong grounding in actual programming skills or technological skills from a formal training basis. We need to get comfortable with that on our own terms, and we need to understand the pedagogy of how to integrate that.
Excellent, excellent. Let's move on to looking in the future, into our crystal ball. Where do you see the directions of educational technology in the next 10 years, and specifically mobile learning?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start with what I've already been talking about, and that's the use of reusable learning objects and mobile technologies to facilitate collaboration between students. I see that as a growing trend over the next few years. I see tools are becoming available on a rapid basis that make it easier for us all to collaborate. They're already in use in the workplace, and I think we need to leverage those in the education system to better prepare our students with their digital literacy skills and with their digital citizenship skills. One of the trends that I see happening as a result of that over the next few years is a shift in educational institutions away from the use of what we tend to call acceptable use policies for information technology, and a shift towards more responsible use policies, which focus on those digital citizenship skills and on teaching students how to be responsible users as opposed to enforcing rules upon them. Some of the other trends that I see happening over the next few years, there's definitely the movement towards augmented reality and virtual reality apps, applications, and those tie in with mobile technologies and mobile learning. We're seeing both AR and VR applications that can be accessed and used through our current handheld mobile devices. We're seeing very cheap headsets come on the market that are very accessible and affordable that we can use for integrating virtual reality applications in the classroom, things like Google Cardboard, and there's some other ones that are in the $20, $30 range that are very accessible and affordable for schools. We're seeing an increased shift towards the use of 3D printing technologies in the classroom, and the whole maker movement, getting students involved in actually creating tangible artifacts of their learning, either through 3D printing things that they design on the computer or through robotics training. There's been a huge shift, a huge movement towards robotics training in the classroom over the past number of years. It's become a very big thing with my former employer over at College of the North Atlantic Canada. The School of Information Technology there has spent a number of years facilitating robotics training for K-12 schools in the region, and just a few months ago hosted the World Robotics Olympiad in Doha. And we're seeing some apps come on the market that make it easier for students to get into that programming game and to learn how to use easy-to-build robotics and to communicate with those devices. We're also seeing a shift towards the Internet of Things, or the Internet of Everything, we're calling it nowadays, whereby every device that we have is becoming connected in some way or another, and we're seeing applications come on the market that will allow individual learners or even school systems to start teaching students how to program connected devices to the Internet of Things. And I think it's important that schools focus on not just how to program these things, but how to teach more soft skills related to that, digital literacy skills such as maintaining your privacy, maintaining your security in an environment where everything is connected. Another huge shift that I've seen in the past few years is a shift towards the use of more open access and Creative Commons learning materials. And I think that's going to cause a huge disruption to the current educational publishing industry. But I think it's a necessary move, because it's the only move that's going to keep us on top of the rapidly evolving body of knowledge and information that's available to students now, and be able to piece together relevant pieces of information for our students to access. I see a huge shift towards more cloud computing applications. And there are huge privacy concerns related to that, I do realize, but we need to get on top of those and figure out how to become the masters of those instead of the slaves of them. There's going to be a movement towards with cloud-based applications and cloud-based information access, and move towards more thin client devices. And a thin client device is one where your information is not stored on your mobile device itself or your computing device itself, but your device acts as a gateway to your applications. So you're shifting around from place to place with your mobile device, and then using that to bring up on whatever screen you have available to bring up access to your computing ecosystem and your applications and your information, which is stored somewhere in the cloud. And I see that as a huge advantage, especially in developing countries, because you don't need expensive devices. You just need a device that acts as a portal for you. And yeah, I see a huge focus over the next few years on that focus on digital citizenship and on making sure that we know how to leverage these devices, both as teachers and as students.
Excellent. Rob, most of my students are in their third or fourth year of university, so they're going to be graduating in the next couple of years, or actually this coming year, and they're going to be teachers in elementary and middle school classrooms in various content areas. What would you say, or what advice would you give about 4 or 5 important technology ideas or abilities they should develop in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think the first one I just mentioned is the digital literacy and the digital citizenship skills. That needs to be focused on first, because technologies are rapidly evolving, but these skills will remain with us. We need to be able to quickly understand new technologies as they become available to us, and understand the implications of those in terms of how they're going to affect our work lives and our ability to collaborate with each other, but also our privacy and our safety and security, and the security of our personal information. I think another key skill that we need to focus on is focusing on instructional design. Good, solid instructional design, connection to good, solid pedagogical design and learning theory, as opposed to focusing on the tools first. I could teach you about a tool this term. By the time you graduate, that tool will be obsolete, a new one will be on the market, and then you'll feel lost if we don't focus on the instructional design itself and on what it is that we want to achieve with those tools. And I think that we need to focus on the ability to navigate and to compensate for digital inequities or digital divides between our students. With rapidly evolving technologies, the digital divide is a very real phenomenon. Some of our students have access to technologies that others don't. Some some school boards will have access to technologies and resources that others don't, and some countries will have access to resources that others do and others don't. We need to be able to recognize those digital divides in our own classrooms and our own schools, and we need to be able to compensate for those in ways that don't further alienate our students, and in ways that creatively capitalize on the resources that we do have available. Even if we're going in a shift towards a bring your own device environment, we need to be able to leverage the devices that we do have without further isolating students, and become creative about that.
Excellent. Okay, I just have one last question. What would you say to a pre-service teacher who's not comfortable using technology in the classroom, especially in the elementary and middle school classroom?
The first thing that I would say to a pre-service teacher right now is start with what you are comfortable with. You might not be comfortable with all technologies. You might not be comfortable with the idea of using mobile devices in your classroom. Start with what you are comfortable with and get creative with the instructional designs that you use to leverage the technologies you're already comfortable with. Do not try and branch out to using both a new technology and a new instructional design approach at the exact same time, because the cognitive load of trying to figure out both of those new things for you is going to overwhelm you. So start with the new instructional design approaches with technologies you're comfortable with, and gradually branch out to experiment with new technologies. The second thing that I would recommend for you is to find help. Find someone in your school, find a buddy that you're going to stay in touch with after you leave your pre-service training, who you can partner with, who can show you the ropes about new technologies and new strategies for bringing in new technologies, someone who you can run to quickly if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed with the technology itself. Find a champion in your school, someone who can help you with those technical aspects while you try to figure out the pedagogical aspects. And the third piece of advice that I would give you as a new teacher is don't be afraid to let go of some of that control in your classroom and give it to your students. I don't mean to let go of the instructional design and to let them dictate exactly how the lesson is going to unfold in terms of the learning outcomes, but let them be equal partners with exploring the technology and figuring out, once you know what your learning outcomes are going to be for your class, once you know where it is that you want your students to get, let them be equal partners with you in figuring out how they're going to leverage the technologies available to get there. Because in this day and age, even at your age as a pre-service teacher now, you are never going to be as good at some of the new technologies as some of your younger students are. They're growing up with this stuff. It's almost invisible to them. We're learning it. My handle on Twitter is expat letters. I came up with that handle when I was overseas. I was an expatriate, but I keep that handle now because I consider myself a digital expatriate. I'm not a digital native. When I started my first Bachelor of Arts degree, it was 2 years before Sir Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea how old I am there. So I've been around since before this technology was available to us, both as students and as teachers, and I'm still learning these technologies as I go. Students are growing up with these technologies and they're experts at using the devices themselves. Let them teach you a little bit about how to use the technology while you become the facilitator who guides them on the journey of learning something important from the curriculum.
Excellent advice. And for all of you, I'm even older than Rob. There was not even a dream of having any kind of technology in the classroom, a laptop or a personal computer. World Wide Web was just a fantasy. And I certainly am. I am such a novice, even though I'm even teaching you about technology. I personally feel the more I know, the less I know, because the world is changing every day. As Rob said, we can teach you something, an application to use, and by the end of the semester, it's obsolete. So that's one of the reasons that I brought Rob to this discussion, because I know that he can give you a similar perspective, but also a different perspective on technology. And Rob, do you have any other final thoughts or comments before we say goodbye and thank you?
My final thought would be to view technology as a tool, not as the end in itself. It's a means to an end, but to view it as a fun tool and just to enjoy the journey along the way as you explore new technologies. Make sure that you have a good, solid plan for what you want your learners to do in the classroom, and figure out by having fun how you can best leverage those technologies.
Excellent, excellent. Fun is the operative word in this. We should enjoy what we're doing, or else why do it? And that's great advice. Thanks a lot, Rob. And for all of you who are a little bit geographically ignorant, Rob, Qatar is a small country in the Middle East. Look it up on a map. And where Rob is now in British Columbia, way on the coast of Canada, our northern neighbor. So Rob has been in many different places around the world. And Rob, thanks a lot. And certainly you and I will talk soon. And thanks again for taking the time.
Thank you very much, Dean.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.